Hello, everybody, and welcome to the sixth episode of season 2 of the She Is Unleashed podcast. I am your host, Dr. Mirriam Knight, and I am so glad that you are here today or tonight or whatever time you are listening to this podcast. This podcast is about empowering faith-driven women in leadership to break free from the chains that are holding them back and to fully step into their God-given power and destiny. Today, we're going to be talking about something really important: how to navigate the process of breaking free from those chains and unveiling your true self, the self that God ordained from the beginning of time, the version of you that He meant for you to produce into this world, the version of you that literally is a part of Himself embedded in the very fibers of who you are. This journey of breaking free isn't always easy, but it is one of the most rewarding things you will ever do, y'all. And I really hope that you will join me in this journey together. Are you ready to dive in? Let's go ahead and dig in today. All right. So, by now, we've talked about recognizing the limitations in our lives and identifying the chains that have been holding us back. But today, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of what that exactly means in our lives, specifically as a faith-driven, high-performing woman in leadership. This is where the real work begins, y'all. It's where we start to see transformation in our lives. But before we get into the steps, I want to acknowledge something really important. Breaking free can be messy, uncomfortable, and sometimes even scary, but that's okay. In fact, it's pretty normal for us to go through this feeling of fear, this apprehension, and yes, even some levels of resistance might show up as we go on this journey. So let's talk about this fear of letting go. Let's talk about fear generally. Fear is one of the biggest obstacles we face when we are trying to break free from the chains in our lives. It's that little voice in our heads that says, what if you fail? What if you make a mistake? What if you are not good enough? I've battled with that voice many more times than I care to count or even tell you guys about, but I'm sure you have too. I remember a time when I was afraid to let go of a particular chain that had been holding me back. I'm going to literally go today to that place. The chain of perfectionism, the chain of achievement, the chain of being driven by what other people think of me, the chain of comparison. And that fear has been the unknown component in my life for a very long time. And I didn't even know, y'all. I didn't even know that those were some of the chains that were keeping me paralyzed. But here's the thing that I have learned. Sometimes the only way to truly break free is to face the fear head on and trust that God will catch you when you leap. Sometimes we're afraid to let go of something that we have become comfortable with, even if we recognize that it is a dysfunctional thing. But over the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about how we can actually step into that place of discomfort and begin to walk away from these things that have been restricting us and limiting us from stepping into everything that God has for us. In Isaiah 41, verse 13, God says, "For I am the Lord your God who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you." This verse has been such a comfort to me because I remember that we're not in this journey alone, this journey of liberation, this journey of unleashing. It's not a journey that we have to embark on by ourselves. God is right there with us, holding our hand as we navigate this process of breaking free. I want you to take a moment right now, pause the video, pause the audio, and just think about what fears might be holding you back right now. What is that chain that you've been afraid to let go? Remember, it's okay to feel afraid. It's what you do with that fear that truly matters. Now, the process of unveiling, it is sometimes a very uncomfortable one, but it is one that is absolutely worth embarking on. Now that we've acknowledged the fear, let's talk about the process of unveiling. The unveiling is about revealing the true you, the you that God created without all the layers of expectations, doubts, and limitations, the you that was there before trauma hit, the you that was there before you experienced rejection, abandonment, or whatever other thing it is that has in many ways led you into this cage, into this space where you feel unable to move, stuck, paralyzed, and unable to step into everything that God has for you. This process of unveiling does not happen overnight. It is a journey and it takes some time. For me, the unveiling started with small steps. So, in this journey, literally, of stepping into this ministry of She is Unleashed, God has first been starting with me. And y'all, this has been a very uncomfortable space for me because, as I shared maybe in previous sessions, working with women was never my cup of tea. I actually specialized in working with children and adolescents because I believed that those were the less complicated cases I could work with. But God let me into this space because He had to teach me that I needed to stop running away from those things that are most uncomfortable, because in essence, in running away from working with women, I was also running away from my own womanhood and from that component of myself that was so key and so central to His purpose for me in this season of my life, in the season of leadership that He is calling me to. So for many of us in this season, God is asking us to go and deal with those areas that we maybe have been in avoidance of. Maybe because we heard something somewhere saying women were complicated, that this specific area of our lives was something that maybe we have some trauma attached to because we've seen and experienced various things that have kept us in a place of just not wanting to verge into that territory. But God is literally saying, I want you to be fearless. I want you to be bold. It doesn't mean that there's no fear, but take a baby step. Obey me one step at a time. I'm not asking you to conquer the whole mountain. I'm asking you to take one step with me, and then we'll take the next, and then we'll take the next. This is what this process of unveiling looks like. It is literally one step at a time with God. It's not a big, dramatic thing, but it's continuously, consistently choosing to live in alignment with who God created us to be. Or let me put it this way. It's first starting out by saying, God, realign me, recalibrate me, bring me into a full recognition of who you say I am, who you said I was when you created me, when you called me into being before the beginning of time. The part of me that God masked and hidden behind layers and layers of pain and trauma. God, show me who that is, but show me one breath at a time, one component at a time, one small decision at a time. So how do we practically embark on this journey of unveiling? Number one, we start with prayer. We have to invite God into this journey of unleashing. We cannot do it on our own. And here's the prayer we pray: Lord, show me the areas in my life where I am not living authentically. Now, for many of us, because this word authentic has become such a trend word, we may think that living authentically and being authentic means we live the way we think we should live. We say what we want to say. We do what we want to do. We think that's living authentically. But true authenticity, if you think about it, when you think about an authentic Nike, when you think about an authentic Apple, when you think about an authentic anything, based on the brand, it's not what that particular item wants to do itself, but it literally has to align itself with what the brand, what the designer, what the manufacturer, what the creator of that particular item, it has to, in the very embers and the fibers of its essence, it has to align the components of creation, the ingredients inside that specific item have to be completely, exactly 100% what the original concept was for. It has to align with original concept. So here's the thing. We have to go back to God and say, God, show me the areas in my life where I am not 100% aligned with your original intent concerning me, who I am first, and what I'm supposed to be doing. This may be very uncomfortable, but it is absolutely necessary for us to begin to live an authentic life. We literally have to become authentic, which means we have to become the original that God created us to be. We've got to go back to the blueprint. We've got to go back to our creator. We have to go back to our manufacturer. We literally have to default back to factory settings, his settings for our lives. The second component or step that we can take is to journal, to write down our thoughts, our fears, our desires. Journaling, it can help you process what's happening internally and gain clarity clarity on your next steps. I want to add a step to that in terms of, as you seek God, as you pray, as you spend this time in God's presence, it's so important that as you journal, you write down what God is saying. For a lot of us, prayer has become a one-way stream where we just throw on God, dump on God all the things we want to say to God, but we never really take the time to be still and listen to what He is wanting to say to us. Recalibration and realignment can only happen when we allow ourselves to hear what He is saying and realign ourselves with His ideas, not just ours. Remember, our thoughts are distorted. Our thoughts are messed up. Our thoughts are so murky because we've heard so many voices, so many influences that have literally corrupted our DNA and caused us to deviate so much from His original intent concerning our design, y'all. Our design, who He intended us to be from the very conception of us in this world. Number 3, set some boundaries. Begin to set boundaries that protect your time, your energy, and your peace. As you gain direction from God and realignment and recalibration to His original intent for your life, you're going to have to start using the word no. You're going to have to say no to things that do not align with His original intent for your life so that you can say yes to the things that do align with His original intent for your life. This is such a crucial part of the unveiling of your true self, the part of you, the version of you that He originally intended. And number 4, take small steps, small actions that align with who God says you are. This might be as simple as, again, saying no to something that does not align, that does not serve you, and speaking up in a situation where you may have previously stayed silent. So let's take a moment right now and just pause and just reflect on what we talked about in terms of what it means to embark on this journey. Take a few minutes. Remember, one step at a time, one step at a time, you can begin to embark on this journey of unveiling. It does not have to be deep, just something that moves you in the direction of living authentically and thriving. All right, y'all. So let's go to the third part and third component of today's podcast. We have to come to the place where we start dealing with resistance in our lives. When we start to make some changes in our lives, especially ones that bring us closer to our true selves, we will often face resistance, both from within and from others. When we start to have to make decisions that are in alignment with who He says we are, there's some things that we're going to have to sacrifice, some things that we're going to have to bypass. There's some desires and passions that we're going to have to say no to. No, and a boundary of no is not just towards other people, but it's even towards ourselves in choosing very clearly what we're going to allow into our space. This resistance can come in the form of self-doubt, criticism, and even pushback from people, including ourselves, who aren't comfortable with the changes that we are seeing in ourselves and that they're seeing in us. Now, I've definitely faced resistance on my journey on so many different levels, in so many different spaces. First from myself, and yes, from other people. As I began to make some changes in my life, one of the resistances that I faced, I'm going to start with myself, is that the discipline that it requires for me to become the woman that God has called me to be, to begin to operate in what He's called me to operate in this level, involves me waking up super early so I can show up for these She Is Unleashed prayer calls on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. It requires me getting healthy and changing my diet and being very intentional about my health and well-being. It requires me practicing and being very intentional about rest so that I am not pouring from a place of emptiness, but from a place of overflow. And saying no to myself in many instances where I just want to stay up a little later, watch another extra show, and eat whatever I want to eat and do whatever I want to do. That has been uncomfortable. And yes, sometimes I push back. And when I do that, it becomes even harder on the other side. Pushback from other people is people telling you that you've changed, that you're no longer the same person, that you think you're better than them, or people that get upset with you in this season because you're not as available for them as you were in previous seasons of your life. And sometimes that resistance from them can feel like rejection and abandonment. And it can make you question whether it is worth you embarking on this journey of unveiling. And I want to promise you that yes, it is. It is so worth it for you to embark on this journey. Remember that there are people on the other side of your obedience waiting for you to say yes to what God wants to do in and through your life. Now, this has been tough, and there are moments when I questioned whether I was doing the right thing, but I had to remind myself that breaking free from people pleasing, perfectionism, comparison, all of these chains that have been holding me bound, even the desire to be perceived in a certain way by a certain group of people, I had to break free from those mindsets and those desires. It was necessary for my growth, even if it made myself and others uncomfortable. The Bible says in Galatians 1 verse 10, Paul says, am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I was still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. We cannot serve God and be striving to please people and even please ourselves. We are included in people. The approval of human beings includes ourselves. Pleasing people includes ourselves. It says, if I were trying to please people, others, and myself, I would not be a servant of Christ. We have to make a resolute decision in our minds that we serve no one else but God, that He is the only one who gets our yes. And that means when He says, go in this way, we got to go no matter what we're feeling like in that moment. This verse always brings me back to the core of why I'm doing this. We're not here to please everyone. We're here to live out God's purpose for our lives. Again, a reminder, sister, that we were created for His pleasure, not our own. His pleasure, not our own. Someone said this, that God's intention and His purpose for us is not happiness, but obedience. And for many of us, we've got to we have an idol of happiness, and we're so focused on becoming happy that we do that at the expense, or what we think is happiness, at the expense of His purpose and His pleasure in our lives. Excuse me. Now, here are some practical tips for handling resistance. One, stay grounded in your why. Remind yourself why you're making these changes. Write it down and keep it somewhere visible. Put it on your screen, put it on your wall, put it in a place where you can see this often. Number two, seek support. Surround yourself with people who support your growth, whether it's a friend, a mentor, a faith community. And listen, in a season of change and transformation, your circles may have to change. You may have to find yourself a new group of friends, mentors, and faith community that are in alignment with where God is taking you. Now, don't move from a place of rebellion, from a place of resentment, from a place of offense. Move as God leads you. Number three, it's so important that we trust God's plan. Remember that God's plan for your life is perfect, even if others don't understand it. Trust that He is leading you in the right direction. If you're facing resistance right now, whatever that resistance might look like, whatever it might feel like, I want to take a minute, right? We'll just for a little bit to just pause and pray about that resistance. Listen, God is with you no matter what you're facing in your life in this season of your life. Now, as we step into this next season, I want you to remember that you can ask God for the strength to stay true to His path that He has laid out for you, to stay true to the path that He has laid out for you. As you begin to break free and unveil your true self, you'll start to notice changes, not just in your life, but in how you see and perceive yourself. You'll begin to embrace the new you, the you that God created you to be. This is a beautiful and powerful transformation. Y'all, I had to come to terms with who I was becoming, that yes, I was becoming the girl, the woman that was allowing other women into my world and my circle, that I was forming relationships and I was creating community that in previous phases of my life, I would not have intentionally sought out. Um, and I want to encourage you, whatever the Lord is calling you to step into, the places that He's calling you to shift into, and Allow him to do transformational work within you. I dare you, I ask you, I plead with you to say yes to that, even if it feels uncomfortable. As you begin to live more authentically, as you begin to live more in alignment with his original intent for your life, you will find a deeper sense of peace. I know that's true because I experienced that for myself. I started to see myself not just as the person others wanted me to be, but as the woman that God created me to be. I began to embrace that I was indeed a woman of God, a daughter of the Most High, created in his image and in his likeness. And here's the thing, in embracing womanhood, embracing being his daughter, I was also embracing the ability to be an incubator and a midwife and one that holds space for other women and other people. Listen, you embracing who God intended you to be is so connected to your destiny and your purpose. So it's time, sister, it's time to allow God to begin this process of unveiling with you. I want to encourage you to embrace this journey fully. Yes, there will be challenges along the way, and there will also be incredible moments of joy and discovery. As you break free and unveil your true self, you will begin to step into the fullness of the life God has for you. This week, I want to challenge you to take some time, y'all, to begin to just embrace what God is asking you to embrace. Identify one area in your life where you can start living more authentically. Share your journey with us using the hashtag She Is Unleashed. I'd love to hear how you're breaking free and how you're navigating this process of unveiling. Let me know, what is it about today's podcast that stood out for you? Remember, breaking free and navigating the unveiling process is a journey. Be patient with yourself on this journey. It is a journey that leads to incredible growth and transformation. As you continue on this path, remember that God is with you every step of the way, guiding you and giving you the strength you need. Trust the processes and know that you are being shaped into the woman He created you to be from the beginning of time. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the She Is Unleashed podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, please share this with somebody else. Subscribe, leave a review. Let somebody know that God is with them in their journey of unveiling. Remember, sis, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And as you navigate this unveiling, you will discover the incredible person that God has called you to be. I cannot wait to see you next time. Until then, sister, stay unleashed, stay blessed, stay in purpose. God bless.